Hi, so I thought I'd do one on the Church of Kyle. So sometimes while I'm doing some boring stuff, I put on PKA. I listen to PKA. That most people know who they are. He's the guy. Kyle is the guy who used to do FPS Russia until he got arrested, and they took about 400 grand's worth of his guns away. His friend was killed. That still has an unsolved murder. Anyway, he's kind of a gamer and an interesting character, and he does this. I think once a week he does this this video called PKA, and then there's somebody else who I think it's called PKA clips, and they just take snippets. I don't usually listen to the whole PKA thing because it's like 4 hours or whatever. But the PKA clips sometimes are pretty cool, or I'll just pop into one and they usually have a list of topics they talk about. Now, let's be clear. I mean, they're pretty, if you're a hardcore pious Catholic, then probably best you don't listen to those guys. But they are kind of interesting. They kind of remind me a little bit of, maybe myself and my friends, although we were never gamers, but they kind of talk just random stuff, and it's quite funny. They've got a pretty good sense of humor. The other guy, Taylor, does Bible stories in his own inimitable style, and it is quite funny, although probably blasphemous, and he's going to spend a lot of time in purgatory, if not hell. Then there's a guy called Woody, who's sort of like the more normal / autistic of the lot, and they usually have a guest on. So this little clip, I've put the link below so you can go and check it out for yourself. It's called The Church of Kyle. And it was an interesting thing to listen to. Now, again, warning, there's language, talk about women, prostitutes, and whatever. It's all pretty grim. But I thought it was a good little clip to discuss because essentially what Kyle's position is, I'm young, I'm clever, I'm funny, I'm good. There's no need for me to get married, lock down, have kids. Nah, I just want to do whatever the hell I want. Bang lots of hot women and whatever. And at the time that he's done this, which I think was in February of this year, he says he's 34. Now, I relate to how he's feeling and thinking because, his main... Kyle is a pretty smart guy. He's an intelligent guy. He's clever. He's funny. Totally debauched, as I was pretty much, and it's the funny thing is that I think he's had a pretty religious upbringing, as I think have the other guys, being all Americans in the South, I think. And yet, none of the stuff seems to have percolated through very well, and I think they've pretty much dismissed it. In fact, towards the end of this clip, Kyle says, you should enjoy your life, and whatever short time you have here that was given by God, fate, dumb luck, the universe, whatever. So he's, I would guess, pretty much agnostic in a very similar way to what I was, and I'm guessing to what a lot of people are. A lot of people are pretty agnostic, and sort of like just rolling with it and doing what they like best. And I'm, one of the things that I've often thought is like, well, I wonder what my life would have been like if I'd actually met an actual Christian, a proper Catholic that had sat me down and said, oh, by the way, all that stuff you think, this is why you're wrong, and walked me through it. Now, I don't expect to convert Kyle right away, but he's a smart guy, and I think he's going to keep looking, and if not, like myself, maybe something will come along and whack him. But the thing is, I made a couple of little notes on the points that go through, and I just wanted to see on the fly, go through it and see, how I think about it, whatever. Like the first thing in the first minute is like they talk about condoms. Now, Taylor, my understanding is he's either married or in a relationship or trying to have kids, or maybe he has kids. I don't think they have kids, but I'm not sure. While Kyle is total hedonist. Nah, you don't want to spend more than a few years with the same person, that kind of guy. And Woody is long time married and, settled and whatever. Now, the first thing is they say, no, we don't want condoms. We don't advocate for condoms. That's what Taylor is saying. And Kyle is like, yeah, you see, I've seen a lot of people fall down with this Taylorism, this dark magic, he calls it, of no condoms. And then before you know it, you've got some girl pregnant, and then you're stuck for life. And he quotes it as a positive, that he's 34 years old and he's responsible for nothing. He's got all the time to, travel, see the world, see as many pretty women as he wants, do whatever he wants, play games. He doesn't have any responsibilities. I can understand the attraction to that, and also a bit later they're going about divorce and how, you get married at 19, you're going to end up divorcing. Oh, pardon me. And she's going to divorce rape you and whatever. Yeah, those are all valid things, but you see, all of this way of living stems from a lack of belief in God. And I know exactly what that's like, because I've been there most of my life. If you don't actually believe in an overarching real God, not just some foggy idea that maybe there is, maybe there isn't, yeah, there's probably something, I'll figure it out later when I'm dead, whatever. I'm talking of an actual living, current, true belief in the Christian, and I specifically say Catholic God, of course. Again, for those of you that are new, when I say Catholic, I have absolutely no intention of you connecting that to Bergoglio, Ratzinger, and all the other pedophiles. I actually mean Catholic, which, for those of you who don't know, sedevacantist / sedeprivationist is really what you want to be looking at. But anyway, unless you have that, a real living knowledge of actual God that is love and good, you are, of course, going to be a hedonist that just does what he wants. Of course you're going to want to bang every pretty woman. And of course you're not going to be too terribly heartbroken if, you got to switch one out every couple of years, months, days, whatever. Plus you want to go do what you want to do. You want to go adventuring, you want to go do this, that, the other. Now, having said all that, there is, and Kyle is quite clearly, when later he gets asked, well, suppose you want to have kids, and he goes on, well, suppose I want to be a dinosaur, so he clearly doesn't want to have kids. And again, I get it. If you're kind of don't have any belief in God, well, what's the point of having kids? Just life is suffering, pain, and short, and death, So there is that foundational point you've got to keep in mind. If you don't have God as a foundational point, then Kyle's opinion and view of things is not particularly unreasonable. But given that I do have that viewpoint now, and I really didn't, I want to sort of take the approach of going through the 14 points I've got here and see, what I would say now, because what Kyle says is not that different from probably what I would have said. So point number 1, he wants to travel and bang all the hot girls. Yeah, I've traveled a lot. I've banged a lot of hot girls. And even before I became a Christian, to a certain extent, I'd got pretty much done with traveling, because I've been all over the place. I've seen a lot of different places. The traveling that I'd want to do would be to remote places, to lost cities, that sort of stuff. I mean, if I suddenly became a millionaire or a billionaire, other than possibly trying to reinvent or get a handle on the anti-gravity devices that I believe exist, and seeing the galaxy, which is again a bit more traveling than just on Earth. But aside from that, if I just had a few million and not a few billion, I'd probably just want to go look for lost cities in the Amazon, find out where Hitler actually lived in Argentina, that sort of stuff. That's what interests me. I'm curious about these old things that no one really knows how they work. I've been inside the Great Pyramid. It is awesome. That sort of stuff. And I'm a very weird kind of guy. I'm 50. I'm going to be 51 very soon. And I would still do all those things. Furthermore, you don't particularly or necessarily have to be single to do that stuff. And as a case in point, Kyle is also fond of telling really hilarious stories about his dad, which also makes him a little bit of a kindred soul, because from all accounts, his dad's a wild, crazy fucker. He just told a story about the horse. It was just, look for the horse story, Dad's horse story. It's just sad and funny at the same time. But yeah, Kyle's dad sort of reminds me of my own dad, who's also a crazy bastard. And, you know, my dad had me when he was 22, and then he had my brother when he was 24. And yet, you know, he moved to Nigeria when he was 26, I think, 26, 27. And he's definitely lived a crazy, adventurous life, which is hilarious and funny. You know, if you want to get his book, read Life and Death in Africa. It's got the same name as me, so you can find it on Amazon. Just Google Life and Death in Africa, Filotto, and you'll find it. And it's a hilarious book. I mean, it's very well written, you know, and it'll give you a sense of what I mean when I say he's a crazy guy. Because keep in mind that the stories in that book are just the legal ones, you know, the ones you can't talk about. I know a whole bunch of others that we don't talk about much, you know. So I get it, but my dad did all that crazy shit with 2 and then 3 and then divorce and then another kid in tow as well, you know, and he's still going. So you can do all that stuff. Is it more difficult? Is it more painful? Yeah, sure, no doubt. But what are you going to do anyway? You know, just play games and get bored. And, you know, he puts that as a joke. He's also got a good sense of humor, old Kyle. And he does bring up one point which I sort of agree with him on, which is, you know, Taylor says, but, you know, your kill-death ratio on whatever game you're playing is not going to look after you in old age. And Kyle says, that's the most selfish, disgusting, you know, reason to have kids that I've ever heard. And I've always thought that, especially when I was still not a Christian, I thought that a lot. I thought, like, man, people that want to have kids just to look after them when they're old, what evil fucks. So you want to bring another life into the shitty planet where they have to suffer and go through life, and then as if that's not enough, they have to look after your old ass when you're shitting all over the place, lost your fucking mind. What an asshole, you know, and I still pretty much think that. I mean, I hope my kids will care about me and that, but you know, if I start to lose my shit, like Joe Biden style, fuck that. I hope somebody straps me full of C4 and puts me on, I don't know, a plane to Mecca or something. You know, go take out some enemies. Just give me a dead man switch and let me walk into a government building or something. I don't know. You know, just kidding. You know, what I'm saying is, fuck, I don't want to, you know, have my kids like wipe my ass or whatever. I mean, look, towards the end of their life, some old people that you know, I care deeply about, I had to do very minor looking after for them, and I didn't mind at all. And but I don't particularly want that for my kids, you know. I can hire me, you know, some hot nurses to clean my ass if that's what it takes. So yeah, I don't agree about having kids to look after you in old age. I don't think that's a reason to have kids. But you know, I've got kids now and more on the way, and who knows, maybe more after that, because I'm a wild man. So you see, Kyle, you can be a wild man in all sorts of ways. Now, you might not want to clean nappies and wake up at 4 a.m. when your kid's crying and all that. I get it. But then he goes on to say that locking another human being down for life is absurd. And he makes the comparison that you wouldn't do that with a car, you wouldn't do that with a house. And a human being is just a degrading slab of meat with no new anecdotes. And he makes a pretty funny joke about, you know, 5 years in, you're going to think Becky is going to come up with a new anecdote? No, what you're going to talk about is going to be the shows you watch. And it's going to be, oh, ha, ha, Becky, that was a good one, wasn't it? Yes, it was, Bill, that was a good one, that was funny. And he thinks, and while he's doing that, he just like mimics putting a gun in his mouth and blowing his head off. Now, again, I relate to that a lot. Did you see, I think I'm a bit smarter than Kyle. Don't get me wrong, I think Kyle's a really smart guy, which, by the way, he did a DNA thing that I saw the other day, and he's got like a 350 Neanderthal points, which is why I think he's smart. You see, we Neanderthal guys, I don't know what my Neanderthal quotient is, but I figure it's pretty high. And we're just smarter. So he's a smart guy, don't get me wrong. He's a very quick, very smart guy. But in certain human elements, despite the dad he's had, and despite the very what I call brutal yet real and good upbringing that I think he's had, I think he's missed a couple of little things. You see, like, his idea is that after 5 years you'll be bored shitless of Becky. My idea, which is even crazier on a certain extent, was that you find the right Becky, probably not named Becky. You find someone with a really cool name, you know, or not, doesn't really matter. You can always give her a name. And you do the crazy shit together. See, that was kind of my approach to it, which of course is a car crash waiting to happen, because most women don't want to climb the pyramid, you know, with a gun while you're fighting off hordes of natives in some jungle. You know, they just kind of want to have a fluffy slippers and a nice big home and be able to go shopping with their friends. And by the way, I got no problem them doing that while I'm doing the other thing with the pyramid, you know. So I figure if you with an intelligent enough woman, smart enough, funny enough, you know, you can have fun together. There's the fun that you always have together, that you know, related to the fact that you're of a different sex, and you can have a whole bunch of other fun things as well. Plus, once you get over they just eat shit and cry part of babies, which, by the way, all of you that have children, babies don't cry unless there's a reason. So if they're crying, you're fucking something up, you're not giving them food, their belly's sore, there's something you're not doing. Because little children that can't speak only cry if there is a reason. And this is especially for the women, because they are the most cavalier, don't give a fuck people on the planet. If a kid's crying, there is a reason. Now, when the kid's older and they cry for a stupid ass reason, go ahead and kick their ass and tell them don't be a pussy, whatever. But when they're babies, they cry for a reason. So figure out what the fuck that is. And all you gotta do to figure it out is try, you need to change their nappy. Have they got a stomach ache? Have they been fed and watered? Okay, it's not that hard. They really don't have that many needs. You just gotta give a shit for like 5 minutes. So there's that. And now I get it. You know, Kyle's in America. He's surrounded by probably chubby American women. Although, you know, he's a pretty good looking, famous guy, so he can probably have his pick. But I understand. The average human being is kind of retarded if you've got a half-functioning brain. And the average woman, probably not that interesting. But that's not to say they're not out there. Plus, I believe that in the South, certainly with my very limited experience of Southern women, but even so, I do believe that they have a generally cooler kind of girl in the South than they do in the rest of America. And I kind of agree with him also about, you know, probably not getting married at age 19 or whatever with the first girl you fall in love with. Although there's two sides to that coin. I think if it is the first girl you've ever been with and she's the first guy you've ever been with, and you get married and you have kids sort of right away and you kind of struggle through that and you survive that, chances are pretty good that you will last a long time because you just don't know any better. And if you keep away from the temptations of lust that are thrown at you about 1,500 times a day on average, you might make it. On the other hand, you know, you can go, and Kyle is definitely on that path. You know, if Kyle is ever going to settle down, it's going to be the same way that I did. You go through everything and everyone, and then at the end of it, you sort of like, yeah, I done all that, now what? Yeah, well, shot all the guns, banged all the pretty pussy, well, what's scary and dangerous left to do now? Oh, get married and have some kids. Yeah, that sounds pretty frightening. All right, let's try that shit. And, you know, that's kind of where I ended up. And again, that was all before I became Christian. Now, I think that people like Kyle, Taylor, etc., they see Christianity as absolute bullshit, which is what I did for many, many years. And that's because they don't actually know what Christianity is. Taylor's got a encyclopedic knowledge of the Bible, pretty much. And he makes fun of it, and he does his little Bible story stuff, which is quite funny the way he does it. but clearly they're not that concerned about what real Christianity is, what real Catholicism is, and so on. And another point that he makes, which is again a natural point, he says, you know, you should probably wait until you're at least 30. Your brain hasn't formed until you're 25, 26, fully finished forming. You know, you should wait till you're 30, maybe even later. And then the question that he says is like, ask yourself, can I do all this 5 years from now? Now, it's true that if you're a man, you can do that at age 40 or even 50 like me. And he does pick up on a pretty cool point, which he says, you know, he thinks he should be like in his 30s, and he's 34 now, before he even thinks of getting married. And then he'd want to get married to a nice 19-year-old, you know, and it's like, and if he's in his 30s, 19 is not that bad. You know, if he's in his 50s and he's 19, you know, that's starting to get a little bit on the dodgy side, as my wife keeps telling me. But, you know, I get it. And so Woody, who's the kind of autist, goes, but wait, so you're saying that's double standards. You're saying that you should be in your 30s, but she should be like 19 or 20. And Kyle laughs and goes, oh, I'm counting on her making a lot of bad decisions. So, but the fact is that it's not a bad decision for a woman to have kids when she's younger. The problem is that very often a woman, even a woman in her early 20s that wants to have kids, the problem with that is that she'll usually have kids with some cretinous male who's also in his early 20s, who doesn't know what the hell he's doing, and then they will fuck it up. But if a girl in her early 20s decides to have kids with a guy in his early 40s, let's say, 20 years difference, sounds terrible. By the early 40s, a guy got his head screwed on right, which means he can lead properly, generally, which means that he can help her, direct her in the correct way so that she doesn't get frustrated, so that he does keep the tingles alive, because by the time he's 40, if he's been a wild pig like Kyle and myself, he knows what he's doing, and she's not even gonna want to go anywhere else because, you know, she's gonna get everything she needs at home pretty much. And if it does get boring, and if she does get bored, he should be able to see it, spot it, and adapt. You know, make it more interesting, do something different, go on a nice vacation, whatever. You know. And obviously, for a woman, it is a lot easier and healthier to have kids when she's young. Although, you know, my wife's in her 30s, and she doesn't seem to be taking. I mean, she is taking strain because we're gonna have 3 kids soon. But you know, it's the same strain that anybody would take. I mean, physically, she's fine. But overall, in a nutshell, what good old Kyle is saying is he wants to have an adventurous, fun, cool life. And, you know, towards the end of it, they get into some abortion jokes. They make jokes about abortion and stuff, which again is probably something I would have made. I probably wouldn't have made a joke about it, actually, to be fair. Even when I wasn't Catholic, that stuff really kind of got to me always. But again, they're just young guys shooting the shit. So I kind of get they don't mean probably anything by it. But the reality of it is, I'm pretty sure that Kyle is just a normal, healthy male who's evolving through life. And there's another clip I saw before which makes me think this, is that he used to watch these, like, I don't know, bum fights or something, and he thought, it was hilarious, you know, it was funny and whatever. And he says, you know, then later growing up I realized fucking how horrific that shit was. And I think that's pretty it. He's probably had a bit of a brutal upbringing, which tends to remove the usual empathy that maybe normal people would have. And, you know, he's running on adventure, curiosity, lust, and excitement. It's all pretty normal, really. So what would I say to Kyle to convert into hardcore Catholicism? Well, probably nothing, because I think life will find its own way, and it might send him there probably in a pretty harsh way. And you know, Kyle, what I'll tell you is this, buddy. I've been where you are, I've done all those things, and then I got married, and then I got the fucking divorce rape from hell. all the pain that went with that. One kid I can't see very often at all. I haven't seen in a few years. And yet I've survived all that shit. And come to know that there is indeed a God that I didn't believe in at all for most of my adult life until I was, late in my 40s. So I get it. I understand. All I'll tell you is watch out, because there's two ways that you get on the right path. One, you choose it. That's the easy way. Or two, you get a wake-up call. That's the hard way. It's almost inevitable that if you do get on the right path, it'll probably be the hard way. But I hope you'll make smarter choices and go there on your own, dude. Not that you'll ever see this video, I suppose, unless somebody sends it to you, because I doubt anybody that knows you comes on my channel here. And he ends off by, like Woody says, but the coolest thing is, I think he's been with his wife or whatever, like 20 years or whatever, and she'll bring you some, breakfast in the morning, like a nice pancake or whatever it is. And Kyle goes, fuck that shit. Why would you want the same old hoary ass that you've been with for 20 years to bring you a shitty $5 breakfast? Go to fucking Pancake House. There's all sorts of cheap, nasty whores there that'll make you whatever breakfast you want. And again, he's funny. I get his point of view, but, I don't want to do it like the Protestants. You need Jesus in your life, Kyle. No, I think Jesus will find you, buddy. But yeah, he's, let's just say he's the kind of guy that I think I could have an interesting conversation with. It would be funny to have a conversation with Kyle. The way I see it would be like him trying to put up all his, fighting for his hedonistic lifestyle, and me, a relatively recently reformed complete hedonist, fighting for the now you got to be a good Catholic boy side. I think that would be a funny conversation. So if that ever happens, that would be cool to do, I think. So yeah, that was it. I just wanted to let you know. Well, Kyle, if you ever see this, I'm ready to do the conversion chat. Not that I think you'd become a Catholic right away, but there's always hope, even for the lost sheep such as yourself. I mean, if I could become a hardcore Catholic, honest to God, anybody can. Trust me on that. So yeah, and if nothing else, we could certainly share stories about our crazy fathers. I think I'd actually really like Kyle's dad. I think I'd get on with the man. Yeah, he sounds like a cool guy, really. So that's it. That was just a fun one that I wanted to do, and I had a little bit of time today, so that's it. And have a good day, weekend, wherever we're at. Thursday. A good weekend.